Mic check 1 2. This ain't a pull track or crew. This Warehouse 15, where legends speak true.
All right, folks, we're back. We are back. It's the Warehouse 15 with 3 of America's best and brightest, and we're talking about TJ. How you doing, Coach?
Good, good. What's going on? How are you doing, sir?
Can't complain, can't complain. And then we got the inimitable, unrepairable, uniquely qualified Coach Moreno. How you doing, Coach? Nice. Apparently,
I'm
it's
doing pretty
Corona.
damn good, man.
It's Corona time wherever he is.
Nah,
And
nah. Bro, it's
Oh,
apple juice, man. Come on, man. I gotta,
apple
gotta
juice
stay
time.
hydrated, man.
That's a nice head on that apple juice. So, gentlemen, how you been? I hear that you guys were at a few events, and then the first word out of their mouth was the Warehouse 15. But more importantly, I'm going to let people know we're going to start a contest, and I'm going to figure it out by the middle of the podcast. And there's going to be merch, so you can win your first Warehouse
Yeah.
15 T-shirt,
I like it.
which may have some similar sayings like Coach Moreno's shirt, and then we're going to get a Coach mug for you, Warehouse 15. Most important part is you take it to events with you so people know you can represent. Well, let's get started today. Who's going to start it off for us today?
Coach, that's on you. I'll follow you. Let's go.
Nah, I just, just quick, kind of up to date. Everything is good. Had a great weekend. I traveled to obviously to Portland, to support, TJ and a couple of the athletes that we work with. So that was pretty good. I know we'll get into that. Yeah, just excited. I mean, I got to say before we get going, I talked to each one of you guys, and I think TJ, you kind of heard it too. I was surprisingly happy how many people talked to me about the podcast, and I know we're just getting started. I know it's a work in progress, but it was just everybody seemed like they really liked it. I mean, some people that I didn't think would care to listen to us or listen to our views and stuff like that. So it kind of threw me for a loop, and I was, like I said, pleasantly surprised. Had a couple conversations about it, and I kind of just reiterated what we've said from the beginning. I said, listen, I think it's time to question. It's a time to talk about some things, good and bad. Give props where they're needed, and throw some shade where it's needed. So it was pretty cool to actually hear that from some of these people. I won't call out their names, because I'm not saying they spoke to me privately, but they actually came to me, of course. So, but just leave it at that. We had some people that were pretty interested, and everybody was, I think, overwhelmingly supportive and liked the direction that we were going in. That we, or at least that the podcast itself was going in. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I had some great conversations throughout the weekend too. I think it's always good when you get around people, the coaches in that environment. Team trials is always a special place for, a lot of things happen at team trials. A lot of directions are changed. A lot of people divisions are changed. So it's always a good time to be around people that are trying to fight for the same thing at that point. Because at that point, everyone's in the same room wanting the same thing. And it's always those are the good conversations and the real conversations.
Well, I think that's going to lead us into our first topic for today, because I know you guys just returned from the U.S. team trials, and I heard they were held in the capital of Taekwondo. And where were they held again?
Portland, Oregon, capital of Taekwondo.
Were they in Portland, Oregon?
They were in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, I thought they were down somewhere else. Well, that's good. I like Portland. It's a great city, great donuts. They have Top
Oh,
Donut,
yeah.
which is
Guess
one.
who I have to send you a picture. Guess who I ran into?
Naeem
Support.
Hassan.
I saw him from a mile away. Also, I walk up, man. That guy looks amazing. TJ, that was it was actually my Olympic roommate. He was a competitor with Grandmaster Perez for many years. He's just a great guy too. He's I think I forgot what he said. Was he 67? But this dude looks like a baby. His body is great. He just it was unbelievable. It was cool. So anyway, that was just kind of cool.
I could tell you that I saw
him.
him in an airport in Chicago, and I recognized him from the bottom and the top of an escalator. Ran into him, said hi. And then I noticed that he was doing photography. He had a passion for it.
Yeah.
And so I bought 2 of his photographs. I have them in my living room, and they're signed by him. And for me, it's a great reminder. He was the metal that sharpened my sword. We sharpened each other's swords, and we became the athletes that we became. And he was an Olympian in 1988. Great competitor, made me who I was, and hopefully I helped him become who he was. And so I leave those 2 pictures up there as a constant reminder to myself of the times and the people that challenged me. And I actually told my son that story because some people would wonder why you would hold that picture of a competitor in your house of somebody you fought. But you got to be thankful for those people. They're the ones who make you who you are. So I always remember the names of those people and always try to
But I
honor
think,
them.
don't you think more than that, like it's the man that he is too? Because we both had some competitors that we would like to
Yeah.
never speak their name again. But this guy, he's just a class act dude. I mean, when I was young, he took me under his wing. You know, we were, like I said, we were teammates. He was much older than me, and you know, just watching him eat and watching him study and watching how quiet he was and how he went about his work. And you know, I'm already at the Olympic level, but I just got something from him, and it's been like that ever since. You know, ever since. I mean, that was his last event, was the Olympic Games in 1988. But just a great man, great family. Retired, travels, like you say. He's got the hobby of photography nowadays. So anyway, just a kind of side note. It was cool to see him.
Yeah.
So
Well,
shout
a
out to my
shout, a
man,
shout,
Naeem
shout out to
Hassan.
him. We got to send him the
Okay, I
podcast
missed
because,
her.
he is,
Yeah,
he's always in my thoughts in different ways. And he's actually,
good idea.
I wrote about him in my books. I wrote about him and I tell those stories about he and I, because we had the good fortune to be on the Olympic Sports Festival team together. He was heavyweight and I was middle, and then he moved down to middle, and we became competitors for a number of years. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the team trials, which were up in Portland, Oregon, home of Top Donut, next door to Seattle, which is the home of Voodoo Donut, and that's the biggest war between two donut companies in the history of mankind. Dunkin' Donuts not mentioned or used out there
You
at
you
all.
like you
And
like voodoo,
uh,
Do you like
I'm
donuts?
I'm not a donut guy, but I like if I'm going to have a donut. I mean, Voodoo is kind of over the top, kind of
right?
whatever.
I'm
But
I'm
like
about just give
Top
me a
Donut's a little
glazed
better.
donut, like Krispy Kreme's glazed donuts, basic,
Yeah,
simple, all day. When they
I
start
think
putting
so.
bacon and
yeah.
dog bits and all spaghettios and all that stuff on top,
Yeah,
I'm not with it.
it's a little bit over the top.
Videos.
That's
That
why
is
you
crazy.
gotta go. You gotta go to Top Donut if you're in Portland because it's a regular donut shop and good coffee spots, and they always do them in these really cool spaces. Voodoo Donut now is at Universal Studios, so if you go to the Universal Walk, you can stand in line for 2 hours to get a donut. So
I
they
ain't
For
they
standing in line
know
for
what you're
shit.
$59.99, you can have a donut with bacon on it.
and
Hell
yeah,
no.
and maple syrup in honor of our Canadian brothers. But let's talk about the team trials. I heard it was interesting to say the least. So, who wants to start it off today?
You got it, coach. Like I said, I'll
All
follow
right,
suit.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
you got going on today?
Listen, I honestly, I mean, truth be told, I was only there for one day. I went there to watch one specific person. I watched everything else online. I mean, I was kind of a fanboy at the other days because I'm interested. You know, I mean, I really like to see the talent and that kind of stuff and see what's going on. And I mean, I'll start. Let's just go day by day, real quick. You know, I mean, I think I'm gonna
Friday,
give you my yeah. Friday was the
Olympic weight.
Olympic weight category, designated Olympic weight categories. And I'm just gonna be honest, man. I thought the level was horrible. I think there was about 4 or 5 good matches. You know, and again, I'm not. I mean, I know we always say we're not gonna dog out athletes and stuff like that. I think the guys that were good, but I think the other ones, I don't know what's going on. You know, I looked at the men's heavyweight and it was very difficult to watch. I watched,
Yeah, that was
I
pretty much
really,
like
I think if I saw, I think there was a 68 match that was good. There was a 49 match that was good, and I think that's it. I mean, and maybe a 57 match. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe like one.
57s. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those 3 matches that were good, and I just
Are you saying when you say good, are you saying like as far as like the competitiveness between the two, or was
yeah
it like just because
yeah
one person was going?
oh
What do you mean by?
yeah competitive. I mean, just two good athletes going after each other. You know, there was a couple matches. There were some certainly good fighters. Obviously, watching CJ fight was. I mean, he's phenomenal, but um, the level that he fought against was absolutely,
Yeah, a little bit
really,
offset.
really there's a big gap. I think I just I don't know. The divisions were small; they were not competitive. Like I said, in 4 weight categories for men and 4 weight categories for women, there was basically 3 to 4 good matches total. And I think that's a little bit scary if you're developing a country. I have some questions about the whole process about you know I think the USA Taekwondo asked for athletes to move into these 4 weight categories per gender, the Olympic weight categories, because they want to kind of focus on them. All right, not a bad idea, but I think in the meantime, a lot of athletes that weren't necessarily fitting in those categories were going down or going up, and they just
Mm-hmm.
didn't belong there. And with the points resetting after 2 years, I think there was some athletes that were hurt by trying to squeeze into some divisions when they would have been much better off fighting in their normal weight categories that would happen to be the off Olympic division. So I'll start with that. I don't know. What's your opinion of that, TJ?
I think I like. I mean, I 100% understand because obviously, we're, you know, be- because our sport's based off of, weight and height, and we get all weird with that stuff. I think we start making moves and doing things. I saw some people go from a division that they were a little bit comfortable with down to a smaller division. Maybe to have the advantage, maybe because that's what they were prioritizing. I'm not sure. You know what I mean? I'm sure that maybe both of those mix a little bit. Um, but for sure, I think we just shifted it. So if you had, I mean, we'll get to, I know you talk about the first day, but we'll get when we talk about the second day of how the comparison between the 74 division and the 68 division, like the number of people in the 74 that were like competitive. I mean, it was I think last podcast I said I was really interested in seeing how 74 played out because there was just going to be a lot of talented people in one arena, and I think that fostered a lot of good moments and a lot of I said growth in that division or growth for a lot of those athletes in that division that day. So. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean.
So,
Listen, the
yeah,
good was good. The good was good. I mean, listen, let's go from the men. 58, Will Cunningham, is a little bit more experienced than everybody. He pretty much walked through the division.
I
The
think he was
big
two
match of
zero
the
all
day.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2-0
but
all day.
yeah,
I think the big match of the day was let's call it what it is. I mean, it was Michael Rodriguez, the young kid from Miami that you coach, TJ, against Klafani. The reigning national team member for a number of years in '68, the Pan American Games uh, gold medalist, Grand Prix medalist. I mean, probably one of the most talented athletes that America has. And they fought it out, and quite honestly, it was. I'm going to say it was close, but I'm not going to say it was real competitive because I just didn't see anything out of Kafani. I mean, what we know he's capable of doing. So when I know a person of that stature kind of fight that way, it it threw me off. And that's not to throw shade at him. Maybe it's more towards Michael. I mean, Michael. I mean, I, you got to give credit where credit's due. And I know again, it seems like my guy, and I'll talk about the other people in a second, but let's be honest. Michael fought 3 under 22 Pan American Champions, tournaments, recently. 5 matches or 6 matches on one tournament, 5 and 5 on the other 2 tournaments. He goes to Romania, fights 5 tournaments, and beats a Grand Prix level athlete. He beats a Spaniard and a Turkish athlete that are just young, rough, that step to him. I think Michael was primed and ready to fight anybody, and he didn't look worried, didn't look nervous. He looked like the guy in the driver's seat. So I don't know if it's changing of the guard, but a shout out to Mike Rodriguez because he stepped up really big. CJ was just dominant. I mean, I think that there was a huge gap, and if I have a criticism of CJ, I mean, he was playing, he was having fun, he was doing a lot of big stuff. Um, I think he could have been a little cleaner. I think he gave us some points, to some people that he probably didn't need to, but it's really hard to judge just because the level's so bad. And John Healy again, he had 2 or 3 matches that were just 40-0. I mean, how do you judge this kind of stuff? On the women's side, I think Maya Mata fought awesome. She beat one of her nemesis, and Milena Daniel,
must
his last
just
name.
what a
And I know they go back and forth.
yeah,
Um, Faith beat an athlete that we work with from time to time, Caitlin Cox, and she was pretty solid and pretty clean. I have to give her props too. I mean, she did her stuff and she didn't look stressed at all. Welterweight didn't have to fight, and heavyweight had 2 matches.
I think it was 2 matches.
Yeah, so
I think it was too much.
I don't know. I just think if that's our cream of our crop for the next couple of years, it's a little bit uncompetitive. Let me say that.
Yeah, yeah. I'll go back. I'll go back to we started at 68. That's my division. That's the division that I think I've seen the most of and felt the most of, just because that's the one I competed in for long. It's always a special division to see contested at any point. Um, I know you kind of mentioned it after the match was over. I think that was a stressful moment for both athletes. I think it's that moment that those are the ones. We got two former people in the same division looking to compete against each other. But I think you said it afterwards. I think there could have been a little bit more from both sides. I don't think it didn't. I saw no fireworks go doosh doosh doosh. You know what I mean? I think it was a very controlled match to say the least. You know what I mean? And like you said, it wasn't there was no big pushes, no big sways of energy in that match itself. So I mean, like you said, kudos to my guy Michael Myers. He's like you said, he's a tough kid, man. I know his story a little bit more than most people. I've seen him kind of like where he started. Obviously not you, but I've been around him when he was a kid training with us and doing all those things like that and growing up. So I'm always proud of that, and I know those moments, and I've been in the opposite side where you're chasing a guy in that situation, trying to, be that guy on the team. You know what I mean? And as far as the Calfani side of things, I mean that's the price of being the king. You know what I mean? We got to keep growing, we got to keep moving forward and trying to get better. And if I'm being quite honest, it's just that's what we want. We're gonna get chased, we're gonna get pushed, and we got to find our way through those situations. But overall, that 68 division for me, not so much. Not so much as far as like deuce, deuce, deuce. Like you said, I felt Michael's confidence going in. I felt us ready for that moment. I felt him ready for that moment than anything. And that's tough. That's tough to see sometimes in some of these crazier divisions. But he was locked in and focused and ready
Let,
for
let me
whatever
ask-
that.
let me ask Herb. Let me ask you a quick question, Young. Like, so I'm going to say it, I think they should have been 2 out of 3. I think it was a round robin,
That's
and they basically just had whoever had the best record. Which, okay, I can see that. But if you're trying to find the best of that day,
yeah,
really,
for sure.
and if I went through and I'm the number one, okay, I guess got to beat you once. But if you know, like I think honestly, I think Michael and Cavani probably deserved a second match.
Another
You
match.
know,
I agree.
so
I
like I mean,
agree.
I couldn't believe that, Herb. They did a round robin, but they didn't seed the people number one or number two. You know,
At
I
the
don't know.
end
I
of
don't.
it, you're saying, right? You're saying at the end of it,
Yeah,
like once the yeah, that was strange, especially for me. I'm gonna go in that direction, especially for me, and that some of the smaller divisions. I think you gotta
yeah.
almost run it back. You have to run it back, and it has to maybe two or three more matches. I mean, not to throw it back, but I remember doing some of those Pan Am game trials where I fought 8 times in a day to make one team, and I had to prove it over and over again. And I dropped the match and came back, and hopefully, ultimately, that was what I needed to do. But I agree. I think across the board that part of the format for me wasn't the greatest. I would have loved to see another match.
Look, I think was there three. There was 3 selection procedures. Number one, if you had more than 5, it was a single elimination tournament. Right? That was number one. Number two, if you had 4 or under, it was a round robin. And then whoever has the best record makes a team. If there was only 2, it was 2 out of 3. Who won the best 2 out of 3? I just think that in general is strange to have 3 different formats in a team trials. Oh, my division fights like this, but your division fights like that. I mean, I know it got away because we'll talk about the last day how big those divisions were, but that's again, I think that's an organizational problem. To be honest with you, I mean, why would you have 3 different scenarios for one team?
Do you guys remember how it was before? Like, what was the number that made it round robin or double elimination? Because if one, it was either round robin or double elimination. Those are only two, right? The two
We
options.
only had 6 people max. There was only 6 people max ever.
Oh,
So it was
always at the
always
trials. Ah, okay, okay.
4 people from nationals and 2 wild cards, and they didn't have to be 2 wild cards. It could be one. It could be none. We know they never let that happen. Like TJ better than anybody. So you always
36.
had a minimum of 5 fights. Now sometimes that didn't plan out because maybe you 2 beat me and I got 2 losses. And I'm like, I can't even make it work, right?
Right.
I can't. I run the table. I'm out. So sometimes you might have a bow out later on, but you always had 4 or 5 matches. So that was right, Young. That's how we did it. We actually even have to after the round robin. We had a month later, just so in case somebody was hot that day and we're kind of doing something special. We said, okay, if you're really good, come back and fight in a month. Do you remember it? Herb?
So the
Wait, re-explain
so
that part. The come back and fight in a month part. Sorry.
so
We do a
what
round
happened?
robin.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead, Young. Go ahead.
So this all started back when we first became Pan Am an Olympic sport. So there was a feeling that they wanted to make sure the best athlete made it through the process, and if he was injured on a particular day, she was injured on a particular
Mm,
day. they would have another opportunity. So we started fighting the top 4 spots at nationals, and then the top athlete from last year who was a team member got one of the wild cards, and then another wild card potentially for somebody who didn't make it through the qualification process. So the top 6
So the previous year's team member was considered an automatic wild card for the next team.
automatic
Okay,
wild card.
gotcha.
And so that meant one, in reality, one wild card. Unless the previous year's athlete did something else and left or stopped competing, which could happen, right?
Yeah.
Especially in an Olympic year. Then they changed it. Originally, you would fight that day, and then you would fight, the top 2 would fight again. The number 1 seed wins once, it's over. Number 1 seed wins twice. Number 2 seed wins twice, he wins. So you had to beat number 1 twice, or you had to be number 1 and beat number 2 twice. But that was all in the same day. So you potentially had,
beat number 2 once. Yeah, number 2 once.
Yeah, so you had like potentially that. So they decided that was not the smartest thing to do, because you weren't spreading it out. You weren't getting the benefit of the best athlete winning. You were getting the benefit of the most durable athlete winning, which was part of the problems with the original trial process at nationals, with the exclusion of the fact that you were competing against someone who might not be good and you got injured early. So when we went to the second format, that was 4, 3, 6 weeks later, you would, number 1 and 2 would come back. And that was, in fact, the team process for the 88 games and moving forward. And you'd fight that individual, win once, you win. And this is not uncommon. This is from judo and many other combative sports. And it works. So here's the question for both of you. And here's a rhetorical question, which may not have an answer. In order to yield the best athlete, there are 2 things, in my opinion, that have to happen. And I'll set it up this way. The environment in which they compete has to be competitive. My son just returned from a Harvard ID camp. And a couple of weeks ago, he went to the Yale ID camp. When we showed up, there were 80 athletes there. 80. Not 60, not 20, 80. In the top 2 groups, there were 30 of the top athletes in the country, I would argue. The next level down were good too. And then the next level, the last level, they were okay. But what it forced happening was, you're now in a room with 80 guys who are good at soccer, and you're forced to compete at a very high level in a training environment. And that's how you yield their process. Let's say you got the top 10 athletes in the country together, or the top 22, so they could play a game. That's not as good as the top 80. And the reason is, the deeper the pool, the faster you have to swim to stay on top. So the reality is that if you don't, in my opinion, which is the question, is it better to have a more arduous team trial process that's deeper with more athletes competing in it, or is it better to have a handful of athletes competing? And I'll say one thing about the CJ problem. CJ's problem is created by USA TN himself. They've anointed him the person in that division, or he's won that division so much that nobody wants to fight. And we've had that in our sport. By the time I got to 92, guys didn't come. They just didn't show up. And if they showed up, they didn't really deliver. Same thing happened with Jay Warwick for a while. Probably happened, I don't know if it happened with Coach Moreno, but depending on the division, athletes just by nature move out of it. They don't even try to win the division. Jimmy Kim is probably the next best example. He didn't have 6 or 7 athletes that he had to compete against. He had 1. In lightweight, though, you had 6 killer lightweights that showed up, and were capable of winning on that day. And you had, as a result, arguably one of the best lightweights in the history of, in my opinion, of the sport. James Villasana came out of that pool. So you got to ask yourself your question of what the end goal is. And there's more stuff I know we want to talk about the team trials on, so I don't want to get stuck on this. And is it better to have a deeper pool with more qualified athletes, or do you just have the 2 or 3 anointed ones show up and, it's a pro forma thing?
I mean, I'll just say, first of all, for whatever reason, we don't have those 10 people deep in our country. And I'm not saying we don't, but they're definitely not showing up. And there was a promise, 7, I don't know, since what year? We're in 25, so 6-7 years ago, that this country was going to be 4 or 5 people deep in every division. Am I right, TJ? That was the mantra. That's what we're going to do. But it's just the opposite. We have less people. We have less competitors. Hopefully, the tick is swinging back on the cadet and junior level. But right now, on the senior level, we don't have that. And yes, some of it's because there's some weight categories that are just a little bit more normal, right? There's way more 155 pounders than there are 220 pounders in Taekwondo. I'm just using those numbers. I don't know if they're actually correct. So there's more featherweights than there are heavyweights in this country. So some of that's no one's fault, but it's also, it should be the obligation of the organization to find those people. And I don't feel like they have. And so now we're in this quandary of finding these divisions where we're 1 and 2 people deep. And let's not even talk about athletes that were world level, Olympic level, that either left the sport, I'm going to say prematurely, or didn't decide to show up. I mean, again, I think that's a problem with our sport. I mean, if I got Terrence Jennings,
you said it. You said it earlier, and you're saying it again. And here's the fact. So what is the role and responsibility of a national governing body to deliver the highest quality athletes it can to the table in the pipeline? And so when you don't do that, I mean, listen, we're a country of 330 million people, soon to be 300, maybe, because yesterday they had an inauguration. And I think both of you guys are going back to wherever you came from. But that's a joke, of course, kind of. But the reality is, has the organization delivered? I got to do something, make people, whatever, wake up. So has the organization delivered on its promise to build the sport, either in membership and grassroots development and in the pipeline? And the reality is, I don't believe it has, because when we were competing and Taekwondo was less popular, our pipeline was full. There were 110 people in every division that mattered at the trials or at nationals. And when you went to a team trials, 6 guys showed up. Not 3, not 2, not 1, 6.
Yeah.
And they were all qualified.
Yeah,
so,
we never, that didn't ever happen. Like, yeah, right.
Never.
I'll say just real quick. I'll say from competing in that system and that having to deal with that, I did feel like I had to always remain competitive. I had to train. I had to keep training. I didn't have time to take breaks. And even more interesting, I remember coming back from the Olympic Games and fighting a World Team Trials right afterwards. After getting third at the Olympic Games in London, I came back and I was in that next team trials process. And I might have been seeded first, maybe, I don't remember, coach. I might have been first seed for that competition. I'm not quite sure, but I mean, I think that kept me motivated. That kept me locked in. And that, again, if we're changing quads, I think all divisions should be up for grabs again. If we're starting from zero, there should be. I don't believe in any protected divisions. I think they go right back into the system. Like, why not? We're so early. It's so far away from the end goal of this end of this quad. We're gonna have a point reset in 2 years. Why are we protecting divisions this early? For what reason? Does it make any sense? That's there you go with you have 80 to compete with, so all the way back down to now, where here's this number. So we've already kind of shut the door on some divisions. We've given leads out when I'm not even talking about whether they deserve the leads or not. There's no point to start. Let's start from the same place. If we're allowing people to shift and move throughout these divisions for the growth and this, that, and the other, then same goes for every division. They all should be up for grabs and compete in it. So that's why you go back to why 80 looks the way it is with the smaller divisions. Now 67, I guarantee it follows the same suit.
Earn your spot or go home. That's the reality. So you don't have to love or hate the sport, but and it's very timely for me, because I have this conversation with my son, who is Forrest Gump all the time, and he sees sunshine, flowers, and life as a box of chocolates, right? So if I was sitting down with any of these athletes, my conversations would be, by the way, the men's team historically for the past few quads has been worse than the women's team. And that's never been the case. We always had a very strong men's team. And the only time the women out-medaled the men's team was when it was a lot easier to be a woman, because there just weren't a lot of women in the world doing Taekwondo. So
do you think our sport's tougher in guy divisions right now?
In what divisions?
Coach, do you think our sport is tougher in guy? Do you think our sport is currently tougher in like male divisions across the board? Like
I mean,
not per country, but just like in the world, I guess total.
yeah, I mean, if you ask me point blank, I got to say yes. I mean, first of all, again, the size of the divisions are just, it's not even close. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's just more quality of, male athletes than there are female athletes. But I mean, that's not to say that in most female divisions, there's not a good 10, 12 people that could win, pretty regularly. In the men's, there's probably 20, but I mean, if you have to ask me which one's deeper, yeah, I mean, it's men is deeper, but women's
Yeah,
no joke either on the world level.
let's talk about that for a minute, though. So, I mean, I hear this often, and what I'm going to say is this: the divide has always been there, and the divide when we were competing was originally Korea, then it was Korea, Spain, Iran, then it was Korea, Spain, Iran, and maybe a handful of others, depending on your division. But the divide between Korea and America was real and huge. And so, if you want to talk about there is a divide. I don't disagree that there's a divide. What I'm going to say is this: the divide is real. It's a question of how many and what. So I don't believe the divide between our best athlete and the best athlete in his division, it may be from a different country, is any bigger than the divide it was for you and I with versus Korea. There may be more people.
Sure.
So, the excuses that the world is getting better at Taekwondo, I can't stomach
That's a
anymore.
good point. It's a good point.
So you got to be real, and you got to keep it real. Let's be clear. The top athlete in the United States, arguably going into the Olympics, didn't perform for a bunch of reasons. Second, the organization itself is a second and third tier leadership organization and has just rehired the second, third, and fourth tier guys again for 4 more years. And they don't understand winning because they didn't win. And they don't understand winning because one of them's a salesman and not a sport professional. So, and he's not a good salesman because they don't have any members. So now you're looking at them to lead your effort to be the best in the world. Well, let's be clear. They don't have a person like Bob Gambardello who took and studied and understood sport performance and knew what to do to get it. They don't have an athlete that's won at a high level that can do it. And they don't have a CEO that can do it, or a COO for that matter that can do it. So at that point, who's leading the ship to correct what's happening now, which is, by the way, let me be clear. USA Taekwondo is a submarine. It's not a schooner. It's not floating on the water, and it's definitely not a spaceship. It's not going into space. It's a submarine. It's going underwater, stealth-wise, taking its best athletes with them and not performing. Now, nobody needs to like that or hear it, but that's reality. Perform or get out of the room. And the fact that the board of directors ignored that and rehired the same clown show, well, then you got exactly what you're going to get. This is the 3-ring circus, and this is the end when the clown show shows up, and instead of 3 people getting out of the car, now you got 12 clowns getting out of the car. Expect the same results.
Listen, I mean, I want to talk about the rest of the tournament. I mean, as far as that, just my little comments, is they made a big deal about him coming back for 4 years and possibly another 4 years after that. Which okay, well, and I thought it was a little bit interesting because quite honestly, he made some comments on social media, and everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I just think it's interesting that, and again, I heard it from the horse's mouth. Supposedly, somebody publicly resigned to the board, and then comes back, a number of months later to a bigger contract and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if that was a negotiation to ploy. Good on you if that's what you're doing, but it seemed like somebody had a foot out the door and then came back. And if the board brought that person back, I think it's pretty interesting after when you hear all the little talk behind the scenes. But anyway, before we get to the last day, TJ, I want to ask you: did you watch any of the cadets? Did you get a chance to go to the cadets? Because I just want to give a shout out to 2 cadets. I saw 2 cadets, and one I know both of them, but there's a kid from Denver, Colorado that trains with Coach Jovan. His name is Nathaniel. This kid is the real deal. I've seen him at a couple camps. He this much better than everybody else, but everything, offense, defense, left, right, high, low, good decision, spin. I was impressed. But there's even one more impressive than that. And I think his name is Joshua or Joshua.
Lepe.
From Lepe, yeah, from Damian Villa School in the LA area. And this kid, this much better than everybody. Like I seen him beat some really good kids by point gap in 30 seconds. And not because he was more athletically better, like technically better, skillfully better, strategically better. But that's not what sold me. I watch this kid fight, and my wife calls him Señorcito, like little man, and because she's known him
Yeah,
for
for
a number of
sure.
years. But when I saw this kid speak, his he was articulate, he was humble, he was knowledgeable, he uh, he had a great outlook. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the kid. I mean, it's 12 to 14. I don't even know how old the kid is, but I'm like, this kid is a rock star in every sense of the imagination. Like that's what USA Taekwondo needs to be putting out is that kind of kid because that kid, he has it all. He's not corny. He's not, trying to do smoke and mirrors. Look at me, I'm so cool. No, just
Fighting.
authentic. Yeah, he was amazing. So I don't know if you saw that kid fight, CJ, but that was
I
a
did. I was
badass
able to see a couple
little
of his
boy.
matches, and I've seen a few of his other matches as well. Like I was talking to one of his coaches, I was letting him know, like they're just mature, just like really aware in the game. I mean, like, and that's what's crazy at that age. I mean, you like you just said, aware of the scoreboard, know how much knows when he's up, knows when he's down, knows like how much effort he needs to put into his next shot, not to give up space or maintain the lead. I'm watching this. It's pretty impressive. So kudos to those guys, man. Kudos.
Well, let's hit the
All right.
last day. I'll
Last
let
day.
you lead out on this one.
All right. Let me go switch for you.
The off Olympic divisions.
Off Olympic, yeah. Last day was pretty good. I mean, like I said, I know we were talking about the numbers per division. I mean, there were still some divisions that were like a little lopsided or not as competitive as others. I mean, I was able to be involved in the 74 kg one, which I thought was going to be fireworks, and I think it was all of that. Very very good day. Very, I'm going to say, like you said, a lot of talent in one weight class there, and like I said, I was able to coach in there, and I saw some kids grow, and I saw some kids do some good things and have some good moments. And kudos to what's his name, Victor? What's his
Victor
last name?
Rodriguez.
Right, Victor.
Rodriguez.
Dude, there's like one, two. Rodriguez is running the world. You got Michael Rodriguez, you got Victor Rodriguez, you got the big Michael Rodriguez.
We
Rodriguez
got
is on
three
top of the
Rodriguez's
world
on
right
the
now.
team. What?
Rodriguez does it
That's
all.
funny.
It's crazy, right? But yeah, kudos to him. He fought amazing all day. I mean, I actually got a coach against him that first time, but he fought good all day and was able just to. And it wasn't like it was lopsided. He was in some tough moments, held his composure, and overall, just at the end of the day, performed very well for that division. So kudos to him and his coach, and I'm sure they'll keep on doing good things.
For me, if I close my eyes, that was the old school team trials. Herbie Young. Like this was like back and forth. It just wasn't round robin. It was single elimination. But all these matches are going 3 rounds and two competitive rounds, and a moment changes the whole thing. And this kid is a young kid. He's 18 years old. He was on the junior team. I don't know if he's 18 or maybe 17, turning 18. He's on the junior team last year. He spent a lot of time in Europe fighting some opens, and he started out very strong. I think he got a little tired at the end of the day, but he pulled some stuff out, especially in his semifinal. He was 15 seconds away from losing, hits a big spin kick for 4 points and changes it. And that was a great division. It reminded me of some old school competitive stuff. And that's what I think America needs to get to across the board. So yeah, I give a big shout out to him, and I like the youth that came through on that day because I know the 54 was a junior team member, the 63 was a younger man, 74 is a young kid, and 87 was our national team member for a while, Michael Rodriguez, like you said. But I thought on the men's side, you got a couple young kids in there that let's see how they do, when they go to Worlds in China in October. My question would be,
Yes.
what is go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I was like, no, go
So I
finish,
was gonna
finish,
say,
finish.
I was gonna say, what is the organization gonna do with this team? I mean, because you got some young ones and you got plenty of time. I mean, we're in January. You got February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September. You got damn near 8 months to do something with these kids. I mean, I don't. I mean, again, I don't know what the high performance plan is, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there were some other good matches on Sunday as well. But it's hard to talk about much more after the lightweight division. I think that was kind of like the highlight of the day through that day. You know what I mean? But a lot of other good
Yeah.
kids showed up. I think there were some injuries in bantamweight as well too. But that was a good division to watch as well for Guy Bantam. So Guy
What
Bantam
about your
and
guy? What about your pick? You told me the name before the
oh
competition.
my what's his name? Young Suck Gun. I think he got
Young,
second. He was in
he
the
got
final. He was in the
second.
finals though. Yeah, I told you he was in the finals. So he fought well too. You know what I mean? Again, I have no I don't have no any fin weights or anything like that
Herb,
for the U.S. and all that stuff
this
like that.
guy's
But
this guy's dad.
I
This
wanted him
guy's
to win.
this guy's dad's like a world class like a Pumse coach, and I think his older brother is like a world champion, a couple time world
What's his
champion.
name? What's his name?
Very last name is I don't know his the coach's first name, but the last name is Gunn. They're from New
Yeah,
York.
but
They're
what?
very
But TJ, what was his name again?
the kid's name.
I think it's Young Suck Gun. Don't get me. I don't know. Don't mess up my Korean. Don't be trying to get me in trouble because I'm not saying it
That's not
No, but
correctly.
he has a name.
Korean. That's
Oh, what is
that
He has
it?
a name.
sound. That's
Oh, my
Vietnamese.
bad. What is it?
You
Sorry, Vietnamese.
racist. That's
Sorry, I apologize.
Vietnamese.
I
But
apologize. Again,
the
now
way
you're
you
still
say
getting
it
me in
sounds
trouble.
like
Now you're still
sound,
getting me in trouble.
yeah, because it sounds like that movie where it was Long Dong Pham. You know,
Okay, how do I say it, sir? Tell me how to say it.
I don't know. I'm just I don't know
You're
who he
making me look
is.
bad, man.
No. I didn't say anything. Long. What's his name? All
Young
right,
Suk
never-
Gun.
Anyways, that was
Oh,
my pick for
Sung. All right, Gun. Is he Korean?
stop.
I thought it was Korean, to be honest with you.
I thought so too.
I think
Maybe
he
it
is.
Taking me,
just
I don't
maybe.
know. You're getting me
No,
in
but
trouble. And anyway, that was my pick for 54.
regardless, his dad is he's like I'm telling you a world level Pumse coach, but he also produces fighters too. So they got a pretty cool program over there. I mean, they're doing some good things. And his son, his younger son, made it to the Finweight finals, and he lost to a kid from California. Both young boys, young kids.
Both good.
So I
Both
thought that
really
was kind
good.
of
Both
cool.
really good. Yeah,
Yeah,
a good match.
that's kind of
Both really
cool.
good. But we were just doing picks before, and that was my pick. I
He
lost my
picked it.
parlay.
I just
Yeah.
I couldn't help myself.
I know.
It's
I couldn't help
too
myself.
easy.
I think that's the
I-
standard.
I just had to ask. I didn't know. I was listening, and I was just curious.
Yeah.
Just
So
curious.
overall, I think there's a lot of good matches. A lot of good matches for the team trials. Like I said, it's always an exciting tournament for me to go to and be at, just to see just to see whoever's there shows up and fight. But I would like to see, obviously, we were saying before, I like to see a lot more divisions filled and packed and a little bit more exciting.
I just don't
I
think
get.
that. I don't think that we've had. I think we continue to have the same conversation, but I'm not sure that we have the conversation that we need to have. So we talk about symptoms and not causes.
Good
Symptoms
point.
and not causes. So
Mm-hmm.
we had at one point we're going to have to think about this a little bit because America deserves this, and that's going to be the winner of the first swag we give out. So I'm going to get a T-shirt and a hoodie and a cup. I'm going to design it today with our logo and get them printed, and then we'll figure out what the contest is. But for one of the listeners, lucky listeners, depending who they are, we'll get them. We are under no obligation to pick somebody, but let's get a listener and get a question. You guys think about it for next time, and then I think we deal with the meat of the problem. So unless it might just be my problem, it might be me just thinking about it. But we need to start thinking about the cause of the problem rather than the symptom. We keep talking about what's going on, blah, 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 but then at the end of the day, we're not talking about what the problem is.
The cause.
And
No, listen, and I know it's not this. Today is not the day for that. But what I will say about this is to simply ball it up and say we need more people to come out.
there you
That's
go.
not a good enough
Fair enough.
answer.
Fair enough.
No,
Yeah.
no. But I'm saying that's not a good enough answer. I think if you want the praise and you want the accolades when things go well, then you better take the shit and the bad stuff. That's what a real leader does, right? The real leader points with his thumbs, not his index fingers. And I think you're right. The cause. Why don't we have more people? Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? Where's the shortcomings? Why don't we have our coaching staff, top level across the board? And I'm not saying again, one or two good coaches. What about the other people? What about the other coaches in the program? I mean, in the organization, and there's a couple teams out there, more on the cadet and junior level. Airplane going through that they're doing some great things, and I don't know if they can keep going to the senior level, but you might want to try. You might want to try with them, you know. So I don't know. I think that's a great topic, the cause,
Well,
and maybe we
we'll
can kind
we'll,
of
we'll
reach out
keep
some
it.
feelers. And
We'll keep it for next time. But you mentioning the thumb thing just reminds me of a joke you used to tell, which I'm not going to tell. But
oh,
we can,
magic.
yeah, magic. But with that said, it's been another wonderful recap of what happened this past couple of weeks and what happened most importantly in the home of Top Donut. We've learned two things today. We've learned about team trials and what's going on, and we've learned about the donut wars and who we think
Krispy
the
Kreme.
winner is. They can't
Yeah,
even
you
spell
gotta
Chris in Portland. They can't even spell Krispy Kreme. So just so you know. And then if
Yeah,
you
I
want to
like
look up,
Krispy.
there's a viral video of a Krispy Kreme hamburger. They made a Krispy
Yeah,
Kreme
I've seen that
I
hamburger.
saw that.
before.
Yeah,
I've seen that before.
I'm
but
not a big donut eater, man. I go to the damn gas station, get me a damn donut, man.
all right. Well, once again, this has been, as it always is, has been. This is the Warehouse 15 with Coach Juan Moreno, Coach
305, baby.
TJ. There you go, Coach TJ.
Yes, sir.
Guy's a little slow. Let's try that again. Coach Juan Moreno
You know, she was
Yeah.
like, here, yeah.
and Coach TJ.
Let's
TJ,
go.
Still
what's up with that
slow.
hat? What's up with that ninja truck?
There you go.
And
And
the
then
great
Don't hate
get
on my
stay
hat. I
stay
wouldn't go
tuned.
purpose, by the way. This is swag. Don't do that. This is swag. This is swag.
I
Don't
like
hate.
I like it. I like it. That look, you guys look very similar, especially when you're messing with the color on your camera. All right, let's have a great night and a great day, gentlemen. See you soon.
Later.
Peace.
What did I
think
do
we-
now?
I think we go with this. That's far enough away, right? Yes. And then